Welcome to the Deaf Kid Show. Let's go.
Hey, yo! Hey. Here he comes. Y'all ready? I don't think y'all ready! Jeff Key coming at you, the over-circumcised Jew. Travel the world telling jokes, eating eggs with no fucking yolks. Low-cal, SoCal, he pulls out the knife and he strips your gal. This is his podcast, maybe this one will last. Probably not the one that he's got. He's only half minus success. That's why he brought in D to the M to the X. He's finally about to blow. Welcome to the Jeff Key Show.
All right, dude, I already have intro music and stuff for my pod. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's DMX. It's me as DMX.
Yeah, dude, which is one of my favorite. DMX is like one of my favorite impressions that anyone can do.
Have you heard the intro to this podcast?
No, but I'm imagining it right now.
Yeah, dude, I found some copyright-free hard rap beat, and then I just, I didn't have any. DMX is not my real friend, so I as DMX, GMX, you know what I mean? I came in.
Yeah. I kind of like GMX more than DMX. Can you give me some of your DMX right now?
Not really, dude. I need to put the headphones on, I need to close my eyes and really believe that I'm sounding somewhat like DMX.
Yeah, he's have you ever met DMX?
No, I have a couple people that told me stories about talking to him in like random bathrooms in Arizona and stuff though.
Yeah, he kind of talks like he sounds. Like it's not a stretch.
Yeah, I saw him a long time ago when he first got famous. I saw him on he was like Jimmy Kimmel, and he's like, so you're like a big rapper now, whatever. And he's like, what got you into rapping? He said something like, oh, I saw these other guys, and they were doing it. And I'm like, I'm better than them.
Yeah. He talks in that cadence. He's like, yeah. He said, I'm on Jeff Key's podcast. Doing it up. It's I spoke to him briefly, and he asked me where the bathroom was.
Another bathroom DMX story. See, everybody I know who knows him or met him, it's always about a bathroom.
Yeah, he spends a lot of time in the bathroom, but he was like, my man, you know which way the bathroom is? He's like, is this a private bathroom? He asked me if this one bathroom was a private bathroom, which it was, and I was like, yeah, man. And then I said to him, I go, DMX, dude, if there's one guy to be able to be, use this private bathroom, I'd imagine, you're the guy. So, that's my VIP bathroom DMX story.
Look, man, we could just start. I'll probably just leave that in. Who cares? Just my pod coming straight from the Lakewood studios.
Yeah, dude.
Look, I want to talk to you about a lot of stuff. Obviously, you said you're down to talk about how you dated Stormy Daniels, who had sex with the president for money.
Yeah.
And you said it was around that time, too. Like, we'll talk about it later, but you said you were dating her during that time? So she cheated on my friend Pete with fucking the apprentice Donald Trump?
Yeah, she stepped out on Pete with the with DJT.
All right, so we'll get to that. First, though, I want to talk, because I never knew this, or I never knew this. I don't know this about you. Because we're buddies. You're at this point, I mean, come on, maybe my last friend in Hollywood?
Yeah. I would. Dude, that's how it is, man. That's how it is. I'm happy to still be friends with you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just happy that, that we are still friends. Because it is hard to even maintain friends in Hollywood.
And also, let's be honest, dude, once guys start working cruise ships, they kind of become a little bit too big to have friends in Hollywood.
Once you get a slice of that cruise ship pie, man, it's tough.
I'm like, wait a second, you're a land comedian? That's weak, dude. Try performing when the boat's rocking.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know how you got started in comedy. I want to talk about how you were the host of Beecher's Madhouse and how you got into that and all that stuff, because you have a lot of interesting stories about basically smoking weed with a lot of different really famous people.
I mean, I went to college in Washington, D.C., and I graduated graduated college and I moved right up to New York City. So I grew up like an hour south of the city. So I was always up in New York and whatever. And I graduated college, and it was like, it was that summer I had told my dad, who was a judge. He's a criminal court judge, and I'm out on the beach with him, and I'm about to tell him that I'm going to move to New York City and wait tables so I can go to acting school and do some stand-up.
Whoa,
So
that's probably one of the best days of his life.
yeah. So what was really funny was, though, I kind of like just said to him, I was like, Dad, look, I think I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna wait tables and go to acting school and all that stuff, and I think I want to start doing some stand-up. And he was reading a newspaper, and he kind of brought the paper down. He's sitting on the beach, he's all lounged out. My dad's a beach bum, and he pulled the paper down and looked at me, and he was like, "Son," he's like, "I wish I could have done that."
Wow.
And and I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah," because my dad's father was an immigrant from Italy. He was a shoemaker, and he they did not have a lot of money growing up, and so my dad really worked for everything that he accomplished. So he had went to Columbia undergrad and Columbia Law School and became a judge and all that stuff, but he did that all through getting academic scholarships and so on. So my dad was a hustler, working so many jobs in college and this and that. So he almost found a little bit of a smile in the idea of me being able to do that, me being able to graduate college without any debts, because he had helped me out. You know what I mean? Like they essentially paid for my college.
Yeah.
So that was, I was able to be like, hey, I'm gonna go wait tables and dick around in New York City and see how that goes for a little bit. What's
interesting? I want to hear more about this, obviously, but my grandpa, he grew up like real poor. His dad was actually worked for Al Capone. His dad was a real piece of shit. He's a gangster, and when I started doing stand up, my grandpa was always a really funny guy, like dedicated his life like to charity and stuff when he was older. Learned magic in his 70s just so he could do it for free for kids, and all these different things. Anyways, it's like my hero. But I could tell he was really excited when I started doing stand up. And he used to make those little, like, on the computer, those, like, old crappy graphics where you just choose, like, a template. And he would make me my own birthday cards for my birthday. Like, he'd make them, and it was, like, people standing in line for Jeff Keith's autograph and stuff. Like, when I first started, I always felt like, I don't know, like, when my grandparents had their 70th wedding anniversary, like, the city honored him because he used to be the mayor. And, like, they had all these different places honoring him, so I went to all the things I was in town. And he always made it a point. I kind of felt a little bad for my brother, but he was always like, "That's my grandson, Jeff. He's a comedian. Like, he's a professional comedian." Like, he always, like, told everyone what I did publicly. So I feel like it was, like, kind of same sound like your dad had. This is my grandpa.
Yeah, he was really, like, he knew, and he had told me from the beginning. He's like, this is, I mean, in so many words, he was kind of like, this is a terrible choice you're making, in the sense that money-wise, like this, you are stepping into a world where it's not a dependable way to make money.
Yeah.
But he was so wowed to the idea that I wanted to do this, and he would have friends always telling him like, "Oh, your son, your son makes us laugh. Your son's really funny, whatever, So he got behind it. And he was like, "All right, do your thing." So I'd moved up to New York City. I started waiting tables. I got a job at like a restaurant. I didn't have to see. The thing is, when you try to wait tables in New York City, you need to have 4 years New York City experience. So I don't know how anyone starts in New York City to wait tables, but I wound up
calling. You gotta know a guy.
Right, exactly, which I did. Like, I called, we had a friend of ours who was connected, and he got us a job. He got me a job in Soho at an old Italian restaurant that was very popular. So I started waiting tables, and I started doing stand-up at Stand Up New York. I just sort of showed up. I had maybe 7 minutes of things that I thought were like a solid set. But in the beginning, as you probably remember, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Like, you think you're, I don't know. Like, for me, I started going to Stand Up New York, started getting up there.
When is this though? What year is this?
This is 2000.
Okay.
This is like I graduated in '99, had that summer, and I started getting up in like 2000.
Can I just say real quick before you get back to stand-up, you do look like a great waiter at an Italian restaurant. Like, hey, we got a fucking rigatoni that's going to fucking bust your fucking
dude,
nuts.
I'll tell you about the specials, you know. I was like, you know, Sebastian used to be a waiter, and, you know, it was like, you know, I would imagine that I you know, we look like greaseballs.
Yeah.
You know, we look like we have an inside track on a special that's not on the menu that I'm going to hook you up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was great. You know, real quick though, I got like how I got that job, because I called my dad. I go, listen, Dad, I can't get a waitering job. You know, everyone wants 3 or 4 years experience. You know, do you think you can call Patsy? And now Patsy was a guy that we knew in New York, and you know, and he was in the life a little bit. And I called Patsy, or my dad called Patsy, and then my dad had called me back like 5 minutes later, and he goes, listen, Patsy's going to give you a call. Just, you know, be ready. And so he had called me, and he has like this broken Italian accent. He says, Pete, where you live? And I said, Thompson Street between Spring and Prince, you know, in Soho. And he goes, meet me on the corner, West Broadway, Spring Street, in 20 minutes. And I swear to you, that's right around the corner from where I live.
Jeez.
Put shirt on with tie. So I
Oh, you started in 20 minutes?
yeah, dude. I literally put a shirt on, put a tie on. I go to meet Patsy. He's there on the corner, and we walk right to this restaurant called Barolo. It's not there anymore, and it was this big Italian restaurant, very, very popular. And he walks in, and he brings me to the manager, this guy Richie. He says, Richie, he's Pete. He's a friend of the family. He needs a job. And Richie looks at me and he goes, have you waited tables before? And I lied, you know, of course. And I said, yes. And he says, okay. And then he just looks me up and down. And then Patsy told me to go wait outside. So I waited outside. and they talked for a little bit, right? So here's like.
And he goes,
really
Patsy, what the fuck, man? This guy's never waited fucking tables before. I can tell by looking at him.
So like the funny part of this is, Patsy comes out. Now and I didn't realize before, he had a Cadillac that was parked on West Broadway, and he tells me to get in the car. I get in the car.
This is the most Italian story I've ever heard in my life.
Dude, this is like so funny. So I'm literally probably 20 feet from the corner where I just have to make the left to go back to my apartment. He tells me to get in the car, and he puts the car in drive, and we are rolling at probably like, I don't know, dude, like maybe 10 inches a minute. Like, it was just so slow. And as we're doing this, like, because I'm already home, you know what I mean? He doesn't have to take me anywhere. So as we're just slowly rolling in the car, he tells me, Pete, I do you a favor. Know your father a long time. He says, you get to work on time. You do a good job. Don't disappoint me. And I was like, okay, Patsy, I won't disappoint you. And it was like the most intimidating way to get a waitering job, because now I was like, I thought I was going to wake up with like a horse's head in my bed or something, like, you know, I like if I messed up, you know.
Yeah.
But it was like, that's how you had to get a job in New York City. So I had that as a job.
I imagine you make a lot of money waiting tables in New York City at a nice Italian restaurant like that on Broadway.
Yeah, it was a good income. You know what I mean? It was a good income. Nothing too crazy, but because of the area that we were in, we would have, you know, celebrities and stuff like that would come in, and, you know, I'd be able to make, you know, we would pool our tips, which was not a popular way to do it back then, but we would pool our tips. But every now and again, you know, it would be, you know, a big star, De Niro, someone like that. And if they like you, they might just kind of, you know, they'll throw some cash your way kind of under the table. And it's up to you to make sure the Bangladesh bus boys didn't notice that you got some extra cash.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Isn't that what you would do if you were as rich as people like that? I would constantly be giving people like, here's $50.
Oh, dude, I would be like, you know, Jimmy Conway in Goodfellas, you know what I mean? Just constantly just dishing out cash in pockets if I had.
To make someone's day every day, multiple people. All the
time, you know. But it was like, I'll tell you, man, it was a very It was a very cool environment to work in, you know. So we're talking like 2000, and then obviously 9/11 happens, and then when 9/11 happened, where I was in Soho, that whole street, West Broadway below Houston, you know, and not to sound, you know, whatever, but it was basically the fire on Ground Zero was burning for months, if not like a whole year.
Yeah.
So there was a smell, and it, you know, and it was not. Soho was really decimated business-wise, so there wasn't a lot of work there. There were days where I would show up to work, and we'd make $14, or
Yeah.
you know, and it would really be local other businesses that coming in that really wouldn't even be ordering food. They would just give us money just to keep our spirits up. Yeah, I mean, it was a really tough time down there. But I'll tell you, like, that's the thing that. You know, I didn't love I didn't love a lot of ways that New York City responded to 9/11 as far as just like getting the tower rebuilt and all that stuff. But I can tell you on the lower level, sort of like the micro level, the people really banded together, and everyone that was down in Lower Manhattan was very supportive of each other, because we knew, like, no one's coming to visit down here right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just was a place that people were staying away from. You know, but it was an exciting time, you know, obviously up until then. But that, you know, I was waiting tables there. And then after I was there, I was at a place called the Mercer Kitchen, which is like a celebrity hangout, you know, and, you know, so that was like how I was making money, you know, doing sets at Stand Up New York. My first couple of times there, like, I had to beg to let them, you know, let me come back, because I ran the light like so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How much are you running it by?
I was running it to where they would turn the mic off.
Jeez.
Yeah. And it was, honestly, bro, it was.
Then you called
being
Patsy.
Young and stupid. Yeah, exactly. I had all that juice from Patsy. I was feeling bold, you know?
Yeah.
But it was, you know, and again, dude, this is like in the beginning, especially, you know, with stand up, no one tells you like what to do, or, you know, like there's no people start doing stand up in all different places. There's no one way to do it. And I hate, you know, I don't want to say hate, but I really don't like when there's comedian friends of mine that are like, oh, you got to do this and that, and this is, you know, you don't get respected unless you go a certain route. And I just never subscribed to that, because I think that's bullshit, you know.
Oh, whenever anybody would ask me for advice, I would always give them. I'd be like, oh, be nice to everybody, like, you know, be original, and then I go and I get up as much as you can. I go, and also don't listen to anybody, including me, if you didn't like anything I just said.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, fucking, but you know what I mean? You're not asking fucking Seinfeld. And even if you were, it's like he had a different route, then it was a different time. So it's like there's really nobody to ask. That's the thing. And you know, I'm sure you too, you get asked all the time after shows, especially if you do where there's younger people and they're like, hey man, I really want to get, like, what do I do? And I'm like, first you move out of fucking Iowa.
Yeah. Step one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean, it's really the advice and it's exactly kind of what you said. It's just, you know, get up as much as you can, write as much as you can, and, you know, keep doing it. You know, that's really, but, you know, I've gotten some stuff like, so, I mean, I'll get into it right now. I mean, so basically I started doing, you know, stand up in New York City. And at that time I started getting involved I was doing student films for New York Film Academy. I met some guys there that were shooting, you know, that were doing films, and I was in a couple of films there. And one of the guys that was directing a movie, you know, a student film there or whatever, stayed in touch with me. He was an NBC page, and he got a group of NBC pages together to make a sketch group. And it was everyone in the sketch group were NBC pages. So, and I heard he was doing this, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So he had called me because he knew I was a good writer, and he was like, hey, listen, you know, would you submit some sketches, and, you know, would you maybe want to be a part of this? And I was like, of course. So the group was called Next Monday, and I was the only non-NBC page that was in this group. So as we were, you know, doing these, you know, we would get together, do some shows. We had some really great shows where, you know, a lot of people came up, and because they were all in NBC, you know, they were at 30 Rock, they were able to get influential people to come and see these shows.
Where are
So
you doing these shows with the sketch?
We were doing. There was one theater that we used to do called the Chernukin Theater in New York City. It's in Midtown, and that's where the show Urinetown started before it made it to a full Broadway show. And but we would be rehearsing and meeting in Studio 8H, where
Saturday Night Live
where SNL is.
Yeah.
So
that's where you rehearsed.
Yeah, we would rehearse. We just had the run of the place.
What?
Because
did you ever meet Lorne Michaels during a rehearsal?
Because these guys were NBC pages, we just had the fucking clearance, to go in and whatever. Like, so we were kind of like, we were all knocking around the place like it was like, someone's house, and I mean, it was really, really cool. So we would meet there, we would pitch sketches there, and we would rehearse scenes there. One night we were doing a meeting in sort of like this boardroom space that's on the floor of 8H. And, we were pitching ideas, last minute pitches for this show that we had coming up. And, and we would give out scripts to all 10 members and, go over the different scenes and whatever. Long story short, and on SNL the next week was one of those scenes.
Oh, so so you guys left the scripts or something, or saw you doing it?
Somebody left the script behind, and then it just got fucking. Someone just picked it up and just submitted it as their own, and it was on TV.
What was the sketch?
One of the I forget what it was. It wasn't my sketch, but it was a friend of ours sketch. It was like some doctor's office thing. I think it was like a doctor's office. There was some sort of office scene. But it was really funny because we had all read it, and then it was either that week or the week after. We're watching SNL and the fucking scene is on there, and we're just all calling each other. Back then, we weren't really texting.
Yeah.
I don't even think there was texting yet. And well, they did in Europe, but not in America. So we were calling each other, and we were like, "Holy shit, dude! What the fuck?" And then it came down to like, who left it? Who left their shit behind? So it was really funny. So anyway, we're doing this sketch group called Next Monday. We're performing, and at that time, I had the guy that I knew that was in the group, who is now a writer. He's a network writer out here in LA. He called me and he said, "Look, this guy wants to meet us. He has a show. He has a variety show, and he says maybe we can do a scene in the variety show." And I said, "Okay, cool." He goes, "But he seems like really rough around the edges. I want you to come with me to meet him." And I go, "Okay." So my friend Ryan and I went to go meet Jeff Beecher at this apartment in New York City, and it was Beecher of Beecher's Madhouse. And at the time, he had a show called Comedy Gone Wild, and he said, and Beecher's whole angle was he wanted this group who was connected to NBC to be on his show so he can get some more NBC contacts, essentially. But he didn't say that, but that's really what his angle was.
Explain real quick to anyone listening what Beecher's Madhouse is.
So Beecher's Madhouse is a big variety show that was sort of mixed the atmosphere of a circus with the energy of a nightclub. That's the way I would always describe it. So it would be a stand-up comedy show, but also an event. So when your ticket is torn, you come in, you're seeing contortionists and sort of freaks, little people, just a mix of like this crazy world. And then we open a stage show. And back then we would do, dance contests, karaoke contests with audience members, and some people were plants. And we would then bring on variety acts from all over the world. And then we would close the show with stand-ups. So I was bringing on, like, Bill Burr used to do our show all the time. And now this is about 2000. This is actually like 2001, 2002 we're getting into now.
Okay.
And it was like Bill Burr, Steve Byrne, Robert Kelly, Jessica Kierson. There were very few comedians that could handle what we were doing because it was just very high energy. And if you were not big enough, as far as your energy and your presence,
right,
you were not going to be able to get through this room because we just sort of wind up the room with like this crazy circus sideshow freak show, and then we're like, hey, all right, now settle down and enjoy some stand-up.
Yeah.
You know, which can be very tough, but some of the right people were able to do it the right way. So I was able to get the Next Monday group to perform at this Beecher's Madhouse. It was at this place called the Supper Club, 47th and Broadway, beautiful theater. It was like 1,000 people, cabaret style seating, beautiful room. We get up there, we start doing this scene. Now, because I was new to the group and I was the only one that wasn't an NBC page, there was some resentment within the group. So I didn't really get many lines in this scene.
Okay.
But I sat. It took place in a in a psych ward, and people are doing stuff. My only role was to be all the way downstage, and I'm sort of on the ground rocking back and forth like a crazy person. That was really my only role. So the scene goes up, and they start bombing, and they start bombing hard to where people are booing. Some people start throwing like limes and lemons from their drinks to the stage, and it's not going well. So I start I'm still rocking back and forth in the front, and I'm not mic'd or anything, and I'm just like, this isn't going well. I start twitching and doing like I have Tourette's.
Yeah.
I'm like, they don't like you. We shouldn't have done this. So I'm doing commentary as these guys are still going through their lines, and I'm almost I'm improvising completely, but also I turn the room around.
Okay.
So by the end of the scene, everyone's like, they actually get an applause, and we get off stage. And Beecher brings us to the side. Now there's like another act that's on stage. Beecher brings us to the side, and he goes, I never want to see you motherfuckers in my theater again. Don't ever fucking come back here. And then he looks at me and he goes, except for you. Can you host next week?
Jeez.
And and it was like one of those classic, like, the kid stays in the picture type moments,
Yeah.
And because at the time it was just Jeff Beecher and Greg Wilson. You know Greg Wilson.
Oh, he was on it too?
The Greg Wilson was the original MC of Beecher's Madhouse before it turned into Beecher's Madhouse.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was Greg Wilson, Greg Wilson, and Beecher, and me. So, so after that performance, I started hosting Beecher's Madhouse with Greg and with Beecher. And then that became really big in New York City. And then in 2003, we brought it to the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. So at the Joint, which was a really big venue. And then from there, that it became my show because, Greg Wilson kind of stepped away from the show, and I was able to take full control of the hosting, but it was a crazy world. Like, and at that point, I was so immersed in this variety show that I wasn't doing stand up as much as I wanted to, especially when I moved to Las Vegas. So it was a shift from doing stand up, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of caught up in this variety show. Wow.
So yeah, I remember being in LA and somebody saying, I can't remember who, saying like, oh, you should do Beecher's Madhouse. But then I don't even think you guys were doing comics by the time I got to know you. Because I met you in 2012 or 11?
Right. We stopped doing comedians because, like I said, so when we had it at the Hard Rock in Vegas at the Joint, it was, we were using the same guys because they could handle what that room was. I just saw Sam Tripoli today. And he was coming out of a restaurant with Annie Letterman, and we were talking about it. And he goes, man, I was supposed to go on stage, and Pete told me, because he was telling Annie, he goes, Pete told me, listen, man, if the room turns on you and start booing them, and they start booing you, just start complimenting the girls. Right? Because I don't remember even telling him this, but that's what he said today that I told him. And he goes, I'm about to go on stage, and he goes, and right before I go on, Pete comes up to me and says, wait, we got to do this thing first. And I called up Paris Hilton on stage. It was her birthday. And this was during the height of Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
This is like 2004, 2005. When she was like, when we just started entering this reality star world.
That's like when her talent really finally started to get noticed.
Yeah, exactly. And so the place, she's like, oh, I love Beach's Madhouse. And everyone's like, like just massive, massive reactions. And she says a couple other words. It's like, big response. And then I'm like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Sam Tripoli. And then,
Oh, jeez.
so Tripoli comes out and just starts eating shit. And then he goes, he's like, I just wasn't able to get this crowd moving at all. And then he just said, but how about the ladies in this place? This is the hottest girls in the world. Everyone's like, yeah. And then he turned the whole room around. It was amazing.
Jeez,
But very few comics were able to sort of handle that, because I remember one time we had Sebastian come on, and Beecher was trying to tell him to bring the energy up. So I'm with Sebastian in the hotel room at the Hard Rock, and Beecher comes up with a VHS tape of Robert Kelly and Steve Byrne doing that room. And I swear to God, Jeff, he told Sebastian to watch the tape and sort of like see how they handle the room, right? And then so Beecher leaves, and it's just me and Sebastian, and he goes, Pete, did Beecher just drop off a videotape for me to look at? And I go, yeah, man, you don't have to look at it. I go, dude, just do your thing, like you'll be fine. And that night, Sebastian comes out. I introduce Sebastian, and the room is rowdy. It's all fucking young people and people with money, and they've just seen this whole crazy show, and they're very loud. And Sebastian comes out, and it really goes to show you that, how good he is in his persona. He didn't change a thing, right? So he starts out, and he's like, yeah, it's good to be here at Beecher's Madhouse. And he's like, and he starts getting into his set, and he's like, the girls in Vegas, they got the shirts that says slut, do me, and he's like doing his set. And the room was loud in the beginning, but he just kept doing his set, and you just hear them gradually quiet down, and gradually quiet down, and gradually quiet down. And finally, about like 5 minutes in, you can hear a pin drop in that room, and Sebastian is just still out. Have you seen Marshalls? You know what I mean? Like, you seen this Ross for Less? And you could hear a pin drop in the place. But he made the crowd come to him. Instead of a lot of people would like change their act to kind of match the energy of the crowd. He just stayed at Sebastian level and made the crowd come to him. It was really impressive. It was really impressive.
That's really interesting. I remember Daniel Tosh told me something once at Comedy Magic Club where when he was when he first started to get really famous from Tosh.0, and I mean, that guy, if anyone knows, was doing really well for a long time, but then he got super, super famous because of that show. And he said, he was telling me how, because he's doing these huge venues now and people started yelling shit out, the same way, apparently, I don't know Dave Chappelle, but apparently when Chappelle's show was really popular, that's what pissed Dave Chappelle off, is people just be yelling out like, I'm rich, bitch, and stuff like that when he's on stage.
Yeah.
And Tosh was telling me how, like, the second he gets out there, people start yelling stuff, and he just immediately just fucking rips into him, and he's like, we're not doing that shit, like, or something. He said, like, and he told me, he goes, never let the crowd control you. But what Sebastian did, that's pretty impressive because, that is like a skill where it's like, if you just own it, eventually it works out, but you really have to fucking own it you can't just own it for 10 seconds. You have to, like you said, it probably took 5 minutes.
No, yeah. And it was, it was committing to, and being confident in the act that he had and the personality that he is.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, at that time, we were paying, I mean, it was a very interesting gig for comics to do when we had Beechers at the Hard Rock in Vegas, because we're paying you like $1,500 to do like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're staying at the Hard Rock, and your food's covered, and you hang out with me, and I had Vegas all dialed in, so it's like, whether it's Artie Lang or whoever, it's like you're gonna hang with Pete, and Pete's gonna fucking hook you up with whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? It was a really cool gig, but it really got certain comics better at certain things. For example, Bill Burr one time got booed off our stage in Vegas at the Hard Rock. Like booed, like ravaged. And it was because he came on the stage and he starts his opening joke was about how he's a 37-year-old loser who still sleeps on the futon or whatever. And we were like, it's like, you know, the room is full of like 21-year-old fucking strippers. And you know what I mean? They weren't relating to that. They didn't want to hear that. They just didn't want to hear it. So he starts getting booed and he kind of let it sort of get the best of him. And I remember I was off stage because that weekend Steve Byrne was there, Burr was there, Tripoli was hanging out. Burr gets off the stage and I hear him and he goes, fuck. He's like, fuck, I should have just fucking stayed on the stage. I should have just fucking stayed there and counted fucking time. Fuck those motherfuckers. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He said all this stuff. Now, about 2 or 3 months later, I want to say.
That's when the Philly thing happened?
That's when Philadelphia happened. And Burr told us afterwards that shit that happened in Philly, and for those of you guys that don't know, like, you know, Burr, you know, I'm sure most of the people that listen to this podcast know what I'm talking about. But
they can Google
he goes to Philadelphia, he gets booed, and he ranks on Philly, and he counts down the time that he has left that he's going to do, and then he winds up turning around this fucking animal crowd into respecting what he was doing.
Yeah.
And Burr said afterwards, he goes, dude, if it wasn't for Beecher's Madhouse, I never would have done that. You know what I mean? Like he wouldn't have done it because he got so ravaged by this angry, like, because it was a similar type crowd that was doing that booing, and just, I'm talking fucking ocean waves of booze where you can feel the booze. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's how it was, almost tangible. And he was so regretful that he got booed off the stage at the joint at the Hard Rock that he was like, dude, because I heard him say, he goes, I should have fucking counted. I should have just counted down my fucking time. And that's what he did in Philadelphia. And that's what, you know, and again, that's something that he wouldn't have done without that experience at Beecher's, you know. So it cut certain people's teeth in different ways.
That's just always interesting, man. It's like you never know how any situation in the moment. I don't know if you know that the Chinese farmer story or whatever, but basically the point is, I won't do the whole thing or anything, but the point is, you know, sometimes something seems great and it might not turn out to be great. Sometimes something seems horrible, it might not turn out to be horrible. You know what I mean? So that's kind of one of those things. I'll never bail if I'm having a bad set. I'd always go over my time because I wanted the audience to know like I didn't care. And then exactly. You know what I mean? Like I remember a couple times I've been on stage, brawls have broken out, and one time in Tampa, I was really young and I was featuring. So it was a middle act for Pablo Francisco, and it's packed and it's 3 levels at the Tampa Improv. And the second level, I'm probably 3 minutes into a 30-minute set, and it was going fine. And then all of a sudden I hear some girl on the second floor go, "Fucking Anthony." And it was so loud, I was about to comment on what everyone obviously just heard. Before I could even say something, fucking tables are being thrown, a brawl broke out, the police showed up. Like all this happened during my set, and I just kind of like narrated it. And people were looking up, but also kind of laughing the whole time. Like I wasn't killing or anything, but they were laughing. And then after it all calmed down, I made a couple jokes about it, got back into my set, ended up having to do like 45 minutes. And then after the show, Pablo goes, he's like, dude, that was fucking one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. He's like, I would have just gotten off the stage. And I was like, I didn't know I was allowed to get off the stage. Like I thought if I got off the stage, everything would have been blamed on me.
That would have been interesting. You're saying that was at the Tampa Improv, right?
Yeah. I don't know what it looks like now. That was the only time I was there.
But yeah, but it was like they have like, it feels like it has like 10 levels of balconies in that place.
Yeah, the balconies are real. It's like real. It's weird. It doesn't like go back like a theater balcony.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's interesting, dude.
Wait, so real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, what were we gonna say, buddy? I'm sorry.
No, I want to talk more about Beecher's Madhouse because it's interesting. Because I remember you told me. I remember years ago you told me you stopped smoking weed, and then you were like, "Oh, I smoked the other day because Miley Cyrus handed me a joint."
Yeah. so when we brought the show to Hollywood, we were doing it at the Hollywood Roosevelt, which is this historic hotel. The room that it was in was actually the room where the first Oscars was held. It's this really small room. The occupancy, the fire, code occupancy on the room, I think was at like 250 or something. So you're really just getting about, 300, 400 people in that room. But everyone in there was supposed to be there. I've never seen anything like it. It was a very exclusive room. It was the only time in my life. I was telling someone the other day, it was like, remember one time I opened up a show and I'm rapping. I opened up the show and I do this rap, this introductory. It's sort of like the theme song of Beecher's Madhouse. And I'm in the middle of doing like the first couple of lines, and I look down and I see Arsenio Hall, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course, Arsenio. And next to him was Eddie Murphy.
Jeez.
And I was like, "Ooh, I wasn't expecting that one. I didn't know Eddie Murphy went outside. Like I've never seen him anywhere." And just to see the two of them together, obviously we're big fans of Coming to America,
right.
and it was like this surreal thing. Like I had so many surreal moments in this environment, because it wasn't about having, Scott Disick or some D-list people in there.
Yeah.
There were some A-list, like the real Johnny Depp. We had a Johnny Depp impersonator and then the real one
On the same show?
Yeah, they were just there they were just floating around the room.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's
we
kind of
hired
funny.
the Johnny Depp impersonator, and dude, I saw the real Johnny Depp throw a glass of red wine on the Johnny Depp impersonator.
Why did he do that?
Because the Johnny Depp impersonator, which by the way, he looks just like Johnny Depp, and
Yeah.
he wasn't in like he wasn't in like the Sparrow outfit. He was in the outfit that he would wear to look like Johnny Depp, So it's like
Mocking him, kind of.
Eye makeup and like the hat that he wears. Yeah, I mean kind of mocking him, but not like he looked just like him.
Yeah.
And I think he was getting a little bit too handsy with the real Johnny Depp. Like he was drunk, the impersonator was. And then the real Johnny Depp was like, he just had enough.
You know what's so funny about Johnny? Real quick, Johnny Depp. My wife, that was her like big crush growing up, and my wife takes our kids to Disneyland all the time because they have a pass. And I don't know if you know, but last year, I think, was it last year or a year ago? I don't know. The real Johnny Depp showed up to stand at the end of the Pirates ride where like the fake Johnny Depp, like the animatronic one is.
I heard about this. Yeah.
It was the day after they went, or like, and I was like, "Oh, you missed seeing the real Johnny Depp." Like,
Dude,
whatever.
That would have sucked.
I know.
One time I walked off the stage after the show at Beecher's Madhouse, and the stage is like, we had a curtain, but at the end of the show I would get, just walk off the stage and, sort of say goodbye to people and whatever. So I come off the stage and I'm just returning my mic to the sound guy. And I step off the stage and I find myself standing right next to Mel Gibson.
Oh, okay.
And Mel Gibson looks at me and he goes, "Hey," he's like, hey, mate, this is a great show. He says something like that. He's like, "Hey, great job, man. It's a great show." And I said, "Thank you." I go, "Thank you, Mr. Gibson." And then I swear to God, dude, this is what happened. This is what just came out of my mouth. And I don't think I was drunk or anything. This is what came out of my mouth. I go, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Gibson." I go, "You know what, man?" I go, and with all the Jewish stuff aside, this came out of my mouth. Now, at this point, I say, with all the Jewish stuff aside, his eyes sort of widen a little bit. And I kind of look Jewish. I mean, like, either way, he's looking at a guy that might be Jewish.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
It might be me, like, who knows? But he was, like, very open and was like, all right, I guess I got to take whatever's going to come next. and it just came out of my mouth. With all the Jewish stuff aside, and I just go, Apocalypto was a great movie. And then he just smiled and nodded and walked out. It was just so funny. So we would always get these, these sort of A-list celebrities in, and Miley Cyrus would come and hang out during the show. And we would do, at the time, 3 shows a week. It was Wednesday, Friday, Saturdays at the Roosevelt. And she was hanging out, and she was not of age yet. She was, maybe she was 18.
Okay.
She, 18, 19 years old or something like that. I don't know. Like, she definitely wasn't 21 yet. And she was hanging out, and that's where, she wound up doing a tour that was sort of based on, she basically ripped off Beecher's Madhouse and did this tour with Amazon Ashley, the big black Amazon lady with the big butt who taught her how to twerk. And she did a tour with like sort of like a circus atmosphere. And that was based off of her, we basically are responsible from turning Hannah Montana into Miley Cyrus. Like we played a role in that, you know, when everyone's like, why is she just getting naked and doing this stuff and being crude and sticking her tongue out? Like, yeah, that was from us. So one day we're hanging out, and I'd stopped smoking weed for a while, and she just came up to me, and then she, you know, because she started getting into weed a lot, like smoking a lot.
Yeah.
And she came up to me, and she had this. It was it wasn't a spliff. It was a what do they call that? It's like, I mean, it's not a Philly. I mean, basically, she had like a blunt. She had like a blunt, and then she took out a joint, and the joint was wrapped in this gold leaf paper.
Jeez.
And she was like, "Do you want to?" She goes, "This has got real gold in it." She's like, "Do you want to smoke, you know, this joint?" And I was like, it was such a surreal moment. First of all, I was like, is gold a heavy metal? Are we toxifying ourselves? Like, what's going on? Like, is this good to be burning gold in your mouth and putting it into your lungs? Like, we're going to have like gold-plated fucking bronchial issues? Like, I didn't know what was going on. So, yeah, I smoked with her, got so high. And then, yeah, man. And it was just surreal moments like that where you're like, what is this life? The LA version of Beecher's Madhouse was really a conglomeration of just all sorts of, you know, just insane experiences, seeing stars that you grew up with, you know, looking up to, or, you know, whether it's Sandra Bullock or, you know, you would just see these people in these situations and having a good time. Because it was known that you can, you know, these guys can come to Beecher's at the Roosevelt and not get, you know, bothered by people taking photos or whatever. Yeah. It was sort of like a safe space.
What,
you know what I mean?
Which celebrities, were there any celebrities that were dicks, or were they all just kind of cool because of the situation you guys were in?
Vin Diesel one time, he wanted to turn, it was like the end of the night. It's like, we have to turn the lights on at like 2 o'clock, you know, 2 a.m. anyway, and then people would take their time getting out of there. He wanted us to turn the lights up, I think, so the room could see him enter.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I was like, "Hey guys, I got news for you." Vin told his manager. The manager told me that that's what had to be done, and I go, "Okay, cool." And then I just walk over to the GM. I'm like, "Hey, I got news for you. We're not touching the lights right now." like, because it was so close to closing that if you turn the lights up, we were gonna lose the energy in the room. It's like, we're not gonna fucking turn the lights up so people can see Vin Diesel coming in the room. You know what I mean?
You know what's funny?
There was some stuff like that, but I was in funny situations, and like, there was one time where it made me feel so old. I'm backstage. And I'm bringing, you know, and so my job is, you know, I'm the host of the show, so I bring on the acts, you know what I mean? So it's, you know, sideshow acts, little person acts, or legit acts, it doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
So this guy comes up to me, and he's just like a fucked up face. He's got like dirty braids on, and just fucking his mouth is full of gold and all this shit. And he's like, "Hey man, I want to. They said I can do a song," and I was like, "I don't know, man." And he's like, yeah, they said I can do a song. I want to do a song. This place is great. And I was like, I don't know, man. And then this little short kid comes up to me. It was the dude's manager. Turns out it's Post Malone, right?
Oh.
Right? So, and I had no idea who
Bro,
Post
I would have
Malone was.
known. I would have known what Post Malone looked like up until like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so the manager, dude, and I'll tell you, Jeff, it's like certain moments in your life you just feel like, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm an old man now. I don't know. The manager looks at me and he goes, this is Post Malone. He's gonna be doing a song called Saucin', or it's either Saucy or Saucin'. And he goes, yeah, just say, yeah, Saucin'. He goes, the kids love it, dude. The kids love it. And I was like, all right, I'm officially an old man. And of course, I introduced Post Malone doing that song, and the place goes fucking nuts, dude.
Wow.
The place goes nuts, yeah. And then, dude, I've had so many crazy stage experiences there where, you know, just crazy shit.
How long did that show in Hollywood go for? Because I only went to the one in Vegas. Did I go twice or once when it was at the MGM Grand?
Right, yeah. So we had the one in Hollywood for about 4 years, and that to me was like my favorite version of the show because the room was so small and it was very intimate, and there was just a lot of fun. The Clippers used to come, Blake Griffin when he played with the Clippers, and Chris Paul. Chris Paul used to bring his mom and his whole family. Chris Paul used to dress up like he was going to church, and it would be like a Wednesday night after a game at Staples, and he would bring his whole family. His mother would be dressed like they were like dressed to the nines, like they were going to church.
They're Southern, yeah.
And they were coming to Beecher's Madhouse, man. It was just trippy. But yeah, so that was my favorite version of it. And then we brought it to MGM Grand in 2015, 16. And by that time it's like, it was good. It was fun, but I was living in LA and I was going back and forth, and it was just really taxing on me. You know what
did you do it? How many shows did you do a week in Vegas?
We were doing like, at a time, we were doing like 4 nights a week, and they were like late nights,
Yeah.
So I would come to LA, and then I would just try to like recharge for a couple of days and then have to go back to Vegas. And it was, it was tough, but that's the thing. It's like I was doing so much of Beecher's Madhouse, and that it was, it was exhausting. It was exhausting.
And why did it end? Because Beecher decided not to do it anymore? He ran out of money or what? Like, how did he have money? You told me before why he had money. I can't remember what you said.
Yeah, it was Beecher's, I think it was just like, I think it was on the business end of things. I don't know really what happened, but there were powers that were involved that were greater than what I was, than my pay grade. You know what I mean? I was sort of the MC host. I never really dealt with the business aspect of things. And I just know with a show like that, there's a lot of moving parts. There's several individual acts, and, we have dancers, you have lighting people, and, sound people, and a wait staff. You have bartenders, which, they're different than, they get paid on a different platform than the performers do, and there's unions involved, and so I don't know exactly what happened, but I know that I was okay with it.
Yeah. I remember you were kind of burnt out during the Vegas years a little bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, and I loved it. Like, to be honest, man, it's there's things that I've done in that show that are like, bucket list items. There's, it was a really unbelievable experience, to do, that things that I wanted to do. I was a big fan of hip hop. I was able to kind of like rap anytime I wanted, and rap with, rappers, like real rappers. And,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And sort of just get that creative outlet on such a regular basis and be paid to where you can be a professional entertainer for so many years in a row is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Was there any? Real quick, can you explain to people? Were there any celebrities, especially women or men, who, when you saw them in person, you were like, "Whoa, they're way better." Like, I knew they were good looking, but they're way better looking than I thought.
That's a good question. You know who really was? I mentioned her when I saw Sandra Bullock. She's beautiful.
This is what I try and tell people about movie actors. The camera, we don't really realize it. The camera's always so close on their faces that we take it for granted that if the camera was that close on our faces, we'd look like shit.
Exactly.
And like the fact that they look that good. Like, my dad the other day was saying, I showed him Rachel McAdams. I guess my dad loves movies. I showed him her screen test for The Notebook, which was on the not her screen test, just her audition. It's on YouTube, And I go, this lady's beautiful. I've never seen her in person, but she's gorgeous. My dad's like, she's pretty, but I mean, I go, have you ever seen a fucking movie? Like, my dad has, but I'm like, their faces, especially now with technology getting better and better, like throughout the years, dude, it's like you're close up. Like, even Emma Stone is somebody who I'm like, whatever. Like, I look at her and I'm like, she's cute. I guarantee if I saw that girl in real life, I'd be like, her face is like, there's a glow around it.
Yeah, exactly. And there was some, and that's the thing. It's like there were some people that I saw, and I'm trying to think of some, but there were some actresses mostly. It would be actresses or famous singers that I would see, and I would be like, oh, okay, I get it. I get why that's an A-list I get why she's a straight up superstar.
Dude, I never,
She looks-
I never thought Ashton Kutcher was that good looking, and then he hired me for something a long time ago to do these like secret web videos, and he was the director, so I hung out with him all day. That guy is fucking super good looking.
Yeah. And dude, Demi Moore, speaking of Ashton, she's another one. She would come to Beechers when it was in Hollywood, and it's like, dude, it's not like she's a, spring chicken at the time. And she was drop dead gorgeous. I mean, still is probably, but it was like unbelievable. Like,
I never met her.
Shockingly hot.
I met her dog though, because she was with Ashton at the time, and the dog was there. I remember being like, Demi Moore's dog. I was still so young. I was like, I got to meet Ashton Kutcher today, work with him, and I hung out with Demi Moore's dog and petted it.
And you know who else is? God, what is her name? God, oh Jesus, I can't, dude, it's so crazy.
Well, if it comes to you, let me know.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about this before we talk about you dating Stormy Daniels and how that came about and what she's like, because you said you guys are still friends, so that'll probably be interesting for people. She's pretty famous at this point. I remember you told me a long time ago, so before you moved to New York, this must have been, you told me you worked on Capitol Hill for like a congressperson or something. And, and you told me, and I'm really interested in this because one thing I can't stand is how it's just like the country becomes more and more divided. And I think social media and the internet and all that is like really playing into it in like 24-hour news cycle. But I remember you telling me you were working on Capitol Hill during the 2000 election. Or before it, and you said, I mean, obviously I want to talk about this and correct me, but what I remember is you said, you worked for, I think you worked for a Republican congressperson, even though you're a Democrat.
You got a good memory, buddy.
Yeah, and you said that all the, people who worked, like everybody kind of got along, and you guys all hung out, whether you worked for a Republican or a Democrat, and it was kind of like, oh, hey, like we need this bill passed.
It's a whole different thing. Jessica Alba is who I was thinking of.
Oh, she's pretty
shockingly hot.
Yeah.
So yeah, back then, so basically when I was working on Capitol Hill, I worked on Capitol Hill from like 95 to 99. And this was obviously, Newt Gingrich had already, he already sort of muddied the, partisan waters and whatever. But even with having Clinton in office and Newt Gingrich being the Speaker of the House, and as divisive as both of those people were.
Those guys worked together though, didn't they? I didn't really pay attention.
There were. It's not that Clinton was working with Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich really was the godfather of how we all got to this point. He was the one. I mean, he really made the effort to galvanize the differences between the two parties rather than looking for the common ground. And it was that sort of mentality that led us to where we are today.
Well, I remember you telling me.
Back then I was working for a Republican congressman from the 3rd District of New Jersey, a guy by the name of Jim Saxton. And I remember I started off as an intern, and then eventually at the end of it, I was writing and co-writing speeches that were on the floor of Congress. But
wow.
It was something to where I would go to other offices on the Capitol to gather signatures for legislation that were both Democratic and Republican signatures.
Yeah, that's what you told me.
I don't even think that happens anymore. I'm talking like now we look at something, and if you can get a Republican and a Democrat to co-author a bill, it's always like, naming a fucking library or something.
Yeah, and then it gets trashed by both sides.
Exactly.
They're like, why would you work with the other side?
Right. And back then, I remember it was very common. And again, I'm working for a Republican. It's not that I was a Republican. It's that this guy was the congressman from my district in New Jersey. So it was my easiest way in to work on Capitol Hill, is to be from the district, to be a constituent.
Yeah.
So, but it was something to where I would be able to go and gather signatures, and it was not even like a big deal. And we would, all of the events at the Capitol, especially for the House of Representatives, it was it didn't matter whether you were a Republican or Democrat. It was a very much, everyone was sort of commingling together and all that stuff. From what I understand now from my friends on the Hill now, there's staffs that they basically have a policy like you can't go to certain events if the staff of someone from the other side is going to be there.
Jeez, yeah, I remember what I was trying to say earlier. I know it's tough sometimes because I do this over Skype, so we can't see each other. But I do remember you telling me, because you said you left in '99, and you said in 2000 when like the Bush Gore vote, and it was all like that became like a real nitpicky. Oh, like are we count? You know, the recounts and all that stuff. You said that's when people kind of like had sort of started to like pick a side.
Oh yeah, that was the big breakaway. That was it. Because you had, and if you look at, looking back at that time, you have this close election. It's brought down to Florida. You have a Secretary of State that has relations with the Bush family. And, you had, what was that called? It was like the Brooks Brothers riot, basically. The Republicans sent their staffs down there pretending to be constituents to stop the recount. And it really muddied the waters of what we always imagined to be a flawless democracy, in the sense that we always had a strong belief in how our elections were run and that they were being run correctly. And once the 2000 election happened, and it would have been the same way whether Gore took it, instead of Bush. It was the fact that it went down like that. And the Supreme Court ruled not to go forward with a proper recount or whatever. They basically ruled in favor of George W. Bush. That it was at that point is when we broke into teams, and we've never come back. We've never recovered from that. Even after 9/11, which you would think would be more unifying, it was unifying for a little bit, but politically,
like 2 weeks.
Yeah, but politically, it was, the second you get a black president in there, that Tea Party formed real fast, and it really turned into what it is today, to where now you have a guy, and I'm not going to get into, politics here, but now you have a president that we have now that is just straight up on the regular lying. He just lying. Like, no matter what you think about, if you're a Trump guy or not or whatever, the guy, if you don't admit that this guy lies a lot, then you don't understand what facts are and what the truth is. The guy lies a lot. We have a president that lies a lot.
I would just argue that they all kind of lie. I mean, his lies are kind of so dumb, so many of them, and they're like, a lot of them are really dumb.
I'm not saying I'm not saying people are just honest truth tellers. What I'm saying is this guy has a problem dealing with reality and or acknowledging what reality is.
The kind of the backstory about Trump, though? I always fucking forget this guy's name, but he went to this church when he was younger, and the guy every time I try to tell somebody this, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's kind of like a sort of famous preacher whose whole thing was it was sort of like The Secret, like kind of speak it into existence. So so that's kind of like, from what I understand, obviously I don't know fucking Donald Trump or anything, but like that, I've heard that's kind of where he gets this whole like, you know what I mean? I'm going to be the biggest, it's like if I just did a set and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, there were 500 people there or something. People are like, dude, that club was empty, but I'm speaking it like it's always being positive or something. So I don't know.
He read One Too Many Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And but my point though, Jeff, is that we have come so far down the rabbit hole after 2000 that we can't even get people to just look at things objectively anymore.
That's why I can't stand it. Is like,
you're not going to get a Republican. Like, this guy just had this second summit with the North Korean dude, and he's basically explaining away this American citizen that was tortured and killed and sent back to America and
horrible.
Died days later. And God, man, this security clearance, his former chief of staff just said that Trump ordered him to give his son-in-law a top-level security clearance. Dude, if Obama did one of these things, it would have been a fucking news story for a year and a half. There would have been impeachment proceedings. It's unpatriotic. It's this and that. But we are so down this hole of partisan politics that no one is even calling a spade anymore. And
Yeah.
that's what's dangerous about this, you know. And I'm hoping that this is just a fluke. I'm hoping that when Trump leaves office, hopefully if he does peacefully, that this is something that we put behind us and we say, you know what, we just for some reason gave that guy different rules. Maybe it was because he was just a celebrity for so long. We just, you know, gave him a break and whatever. But hopefully this is just a one-off deal. But if this is the new normal, it's going to be, you know, this is going to be a very difficult future ahead. You know?
Well, I don't know, but the thing I think is, I think there's a ton of stuff that the Republicans let Trump get away with that, of course, if Obama did it, they wouldn't let him get away with at all. But I also think the media, like, let Obama get away with a ton of shit that fucking, you know, Trump does like a tenth of that. That's like a big story no matter what he does. And like, I think the media is fucking very biased, but I also think Trump, yeah, that's the thing I can't stand is the team aspect of it, where it's like, oh, I'm on this team, therefore, if my guy does it, it's totally fine. And then if your guy does it, it's obviously horrible. Like, that's just such dumb, lazy thinking to me to be like, I'm not even going to think about what's actually happening or being said or being done. Like, I remember when Obama was like, oh, I'm going to sit down when he was running or when he's a senator, he said like, oh, like I would meet with the Iranian regime with no preconditions. And everybody was like, that's ridiculous. And it's like, you know, I don't know. It sounds kind of ridiculous to me too, to meet with like, you know, basically terrorist backers like that. But then Trump goes and like meets with fucking North Korea. Everyone's just like what? And he has no preconditions. Like, what are you getting out of this, dude? Like, I don't even fully understand what he's doing going over there. But anyways,
he calls him like a nice guy. This guy he's talking about his character. The guy fucking starved millions of people. He enslaves his own people.
I know, it's horrible. That stuff is super gross. And then he had that family to the what do you call it, the State of the Union, and then now he's like, oh, you know, Kim told me that he didn't know about it, so seems like a good guy.
Yeah, you don't think he knows that he's got a 22-year-old American student in his possession? You don't think he was behind any of that stuff, you dummy? I mean, it's just crazy, man. It's just a very interesting time. You know, as a fan of, you know, I'm quite a politico, you know what I mean? Like I definitely am. I enjoy politics. I enjoy this, you know, and that's why I went to school in DC, was to sort of be exposed to the nuts and bolts of how Washington works, you know, how the system works. So I am a fan. I'm a fan in spectator form, you know. And it's a very interesting time to be alive, to see all of this stuff. But what we're really witnessing in real time are the major institutions and the major pillars of our democracy being tested, you know. And we've never had a president that sort of talked down to an entire branch of government, you know, whether it's the judicial or the legislative branch. But, you know, this is it, man. Like, we're seeing this is like a stress test.
Wait, so we'll get to Stormy Daniels in a second. I got to tease that again in case anyone's tuning out because we're talking politics now. But do you think?
Yeah, we'll talk about Stormy now. Yeah,
do you think it'll get better? Do you think it'll get better or worse? Because I honestly don't really think it's going to get better, because and I'll tell you my reasoning, and then I want to hear your opinion. But so Trump won only because, and I know he likes to pretend like he won because he's so popular, but I mean, Mitt Romney won more votes in those swing states, like I think Wisconsin and Michigan or something, and he lost the state to Obama. Like, the people did not like Hillary Clinton. They didn't like Trump. I feel like obviously we see like the people on both sides who are like but that's just, they're showing those people. I think most people held their nose and voted for Clinton, or held their nose and voted for Trump because they didn't want Clinton. Like, I think both those people are just like shitty people. And the fact that they were friends for decades and people pretend like, how could you have voted for the other one? It's like, I don't see I see a difference in like demeanor, but like, I don't know. I think the Clintons are fucking shady and scary as fuck. And Trump is obviously like, you know, a pretty scummy dude his whole life, and it's not a secret.
Yeah.
But I think so. So my point is, the Republicans, the only reason Trump won was because the Republicans ran so many people in the primaries, and he didn't ever win a plurality. He won he won more. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he won enough, or no, he won a plurality, but he didn't win a majority. That's what I meant to say.
Right.
So, yeah, so he just kind of like found a lane, and all the other ones are kind of eating themselves. People like Marco Rubio, who I thought was like kind of okay at some point, like then he just fucking got, you know, I used to talk about it on stage, where just got his, you know, Trump just kind of shit on him real quick. And then you have to be able to like fight back. Like, there was certain points in that Republican primary where if just a certain people dropped off sooner, it would have been Trump against, 2 other people, and
Right.
he probably would have lost, but it didn't happen. And now the Democrats are running a shitload of people, it looks like, and I think someone's just going to find a lane, and it's probably going to be somebody who, I don't know what you think of them, but I think it's probably pretty radical, and they might just find a lane, get like 38, 39%, skate to the nomination, and then people are going to be like, well, fuck, I don't want Trump again, so I'll vote for that person, and other people will be like, well, fuck, I don't want that radical left-wing person, am I going to vote for Trump? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what's happening.
My opinion or my prediction on the Democratic side would be that I think when you have a bunch of people running in the primary, I think what the Democrats are going to do, because of what they've seen, what we've experienced in 2016, I really think they're going to fall in line behind someone early, and it's going to be, you're going to see a major drop off of candidates early. Because the initial polling or the opening stages of polling are going to narrow it down to maybe like 3 or 4 people earlier than what the Republicans did.
Yeah, but is that what you want to happen in a perfect world for you because you're a Democrat, or is that what you really think is going to happen? Because I think all these people running are egomaniacs. You want to be president? Like, you're a fucking weirdo in my book. Like, I don't want to hang out with anybody who wants to be president, unless you did.
For sure.
You're such a nice guy.
No, for sure, dude. I really do believe that, if there's one thing with this last election, it was a big wake up call for a lot of people. And I think that the Democrats will pull some rank and file a little bit more, because they're not usually that party. The Republicans are usually the rank and file, sort of like next in line, whatever. But I think the Democrats are going to, I think the actual voting public is going to make their decisions early on who they're going to narrow it down to pretty early.
Did you know what's so interesting? This is interesting.
I don't think Cory Booker has a chance. I don't think, I think Kamala Harris might have, she'll be able to stick around. But I think the second that Joe Biden gets in the race, it's going to really, I think a lot of people are just going to get behind Joe Biden and be like, look, and even though, again, it's another old timer, I think people are starved. They want to not have to pay attention every day. They want a capable person. Dude, I wake up in the morning, I grab my phone, I go to WashingtonPost.com, and I'm just like, hopefully the wheels are still on this republic. Let's see what we got. You know what I mean? And I think people are starving for that time again, where we know we have a person that is intelligent, not a sporadic thinker, and someone that is just going to be able to handle shit so we can get back to our lives of not paying attention.
I don't know if Joe Biden, I think he's going to get in, and initially he's going to have a good, rating as far as whatever, like the, polling or whatever. But, dude, I'm still a registered Democrat just because I'm too lazy to change it, but I'm not going to change it to Republican. I'm independent. I can't really stand the whole, what I've, in my opinion, is like a gang mentality on both sides. But
I agree 100%. I think everyone should be independent, and we should get these fucking parties in line that way.
Yeah, but the Democratic Party, one of the reasons I can't even stand a lot, the louder voices, at least, I know this is not all Democrats, and I don't like when people go, oh, Republicans this or Democrats that, but the louder voices, the ones on social media, like the new, quote, fresh faces, these are the more radical people. These are the people who are, even I saw Stephen Colbert, which I thought was like an extremely weird way to try and make a joke. He made a joke when Bernie Sanders got in again, and I'm not a Bernie fan, but he made a joke about how, the Democrats have, gay people and women and gay women, all this stuff, and African-American, all this stuff. And he goes, and then Bernie's like, just an old white guy. I'm not doing the joke the way he did it, but he basically said, and Bernie's just like, and I'm an old white guy. And I'm like, this whole, the left has kind of turned into they only look at people based on their race and gender. And if you're not, first off, Bernie Sanders is a bigger minority than a black person. He's Jewish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not a practicing Jew religiously, but there are less Jews than black people. There are less Jews than Latinos. For some reason, Jews just get this, and maybe I'm just sensitive to it because I'm Jewish, or maybe just because I like logic.
No,
The
I
word
agree.
minority has a definition. Like, it's like a minority.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just weird to be like, he gets labeled old white guy by Stephen Colbert, and he gets labeled old white guy by, I think, a lot of the more aggressive voices in that party right now. So I think Joe Biden is just going to get labeled. Howard Schultz, dude, that guy came out and was like, oh, I might run as an independent. And I think the Democrats, apparently, they are worried that he's going to give Trump a path. But I don't know, man. It's so far out. Like, he might take from Trump voters too. You know what I mean? Like, I think he would. But they just called him an old white guy. Like, he's just an old white billionaire. It's like, dude, this guy grew up in the projects. He's Jewish. He grew up poor. He became a billionaire. I don't like this whole, like, hating people because they've achieved or something. He didn't have anything handed to him.
I agree 100%, dude. And I got to say, dude, I want to double down on what you just said about Bernie and that whole Jewish aspect. It's like, yeah, dude, that's not – you know, that's beyond a valid point. You know, that's not something that you're saying because you're Jewish, dude. Like, that's a real thing. Like, there weren't millions of Latinos systematically murdered in the 1940s.
But dude,
you know?
That stuff aside, my point is, you shouldn't look at people. You just listen to what they're saying they're going to do. See if you believe them. You know what I mean? Because obviously politicians say stuff. But, like, I don't care if the president's a woman. I don't care if the president's Latino. I don't care if the president's black. I don't care if the next 10 presidents are fucking Asian. Like, who cares? By the way, no one gives a fuck about Asians. Like, nobody cares about Asians at all.
Poor Asians, man. We got to get them back in the mix.
All right, so let's talk about Stormy Daniels. All right,
yes,
still
buddy.
listening.
So it's really what's funny with Stormy is so obviously when the story broke, I was in where was I? I was in Edmonton. I was featuring for Steve Byrne in Edmonton, and I got a text from someone, and you know, a lot of people, when the day the story broke, a lot of people didn't know who Stormy Daniels was, and you know, the press didn't really know who Stormy Daniels was, and they were just Googling Stormy Daniels because this happened in 2006.
Oh, and then you are.
They were Googling Stormy Daniels 2006. If you Google Stormy Daniels 2006, like, my photo with her pops up in like one of the first couple photos. So my buddy sends me an article from Business Insider. And it's a picture of me on stage with Stormy. It was at Paris Hilton's CD release party. And I'm emceeing it, and I brought Stormy. Stormy and I were hanging out that time, and I brought her on stage and whatever. So I was like, oh, man, this is gonna be a thing. And so how it happened was this. In 2006, we had Beacher's Madhouse, the Hard Rock, and Stormy she was very popular, you know, not just for the AVN weekends or whatever, but she was kind of like a popular porn star that the clubs would invite to come. And, you know, during that time in Las Vegas and in a lot of the nightclub scene, they would invite, you know, whoever, Paris or Stormy or whatever. They would invite them and be like, you know, they would promote the night at the club with, you know, that person's face and say, Stormy Daniels, Saturday night at Light at the Bellagio or whatever, you know.
Okay.
So she was just, you know, every so often, every other month or so, she would maybe be in Vegas and be at one of these nightclub nights. And I had met her in 2006 through a friend, and it just so happened that week in the I forget what magazine. It was a popular magazine at the time in Las Vegas. They had, it was Vegas. It was called Vegas Magazine, and they had a little featurette story on me, and you know, big picture and an article on me, and you know, a little blurb at the bottom, my favorite restaurant, this and that, and you know, and kind of told my story, and she had seen it. So sort of like the stars sort of aligned the right way. Like I'd met her through cool people. I had billboards with my face on it in town. And then she saw this article. She told me she saw the article. And she's like, oh, that's so cool. And then, you know, so I was like, I looked really cool, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the only way you're going to hook up with the porn stars is like, you know, you got to look really cool or something, you know? So I just looked really cool. And yeah, we started hanging out, and you know, and we were kind of, you know, it was like kind of like dating in the sense that, you know, I did not want to just sort of like hop in a bed with Stormy and be like, I actually really liked her, and the thing is this, like, Stormy is super funny. she's really cool. She's like a really cool chick. I genuinely wanted to get to know her, and that's a fact. So we would hang out, and I'd take her to dinner and whatever. I was like a gentleman to her, whereas most other people at the time that she was hanging out with were not doing that,
Yeah.
So
You didn't know who she was before though, right?
I did not.
Isn't it weird? Some guy. That's the funny thing. I think when that happened, that how many husbands did know who she was when she's obviously not famous before the Trump thing happens, and they're like, "What? Stormy Daniels?" And the wife's like, "You know who that is?" "Oh no, I don't." "What?"
I have no idea. Imagine not being able to fake the photographs that have been published in like online.
Wait, so were you contacted by like publications that wanted to because they saw you in those pictures?
No, I mean apparently those photos belonged to whoever it was, Getty or whoever it was. As long as those people were paid, that was good. They could use the photo. I mean, they don't need my clearance, Yeah. It's whoever took the photo. So, I really had no say in it. But I'm in a great committed relationship of 8 years, and I knew I was like, oh man, I'm gonna catch some stuff on this, But my girlfriend Whitney was very understanding with it. I mean, in the sense that she knew, like, I just told her what was up. And
wait, this is when you were with Whitney?
No, I'm saying when all of this came out and all of these photos came out and whatever, I was just saying, like, I just knew this story was not going to go away.
Yeah.
So I just talked to Whitney and I was like, look, Stormy and I were more friends than anything. Like we were like, we dated. Like it was like I really like, like I said, like I thought she was so funny, so cool. And like, I was not like, I banged Stormy Daniels or,
Yeah.
So for me, it was like literally the Christmas of 2006, I called my friends and my little brother and asked them, hey, listen, what do you think if I brought Stormy home for Christmas?
We think Dad might want to unwrap her, Pete.
Yeah. And Stormy, it's like, she doesn't, like, even when she dresses, not like, her boobs are huge and like, she's going to look like a sex pot. You know what I mean? No matter what, you're not going to, you can throw a burqa on her and should look hot.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's where it was. I was like, I was gonna like literally like take her home for Christmas, but it was around that time. It was like a little bit before that time. I remember she had kind of fell off the radar for a week.
She was trying to get on The Apprentice, right?
Yeah, and that's when that was. Like she went to that golf tournament or whatever, and she was, and that's when that whole thing happened. So, yeah, man. And she's really, like I said, she's really cool, Stormy. She's really cool. This just so happened, she got caught up in this thing and yeah, but it was really trippy and surreal when it came out.
And her rate for like, because I know, I see in the news, like she's doing, these events or whatever at strip clubs and everything. I mean, this is like, to me, kind of similar to, I mean, not the same thing, obviously, but that's like if Monica Lewinsky during all that shit was like, oh, I'll fucking do club appearances. You know what I mean? Like, what is their rate? Like, her rate has to be huge. I know people's rates on Jersey Shore when Jersey Shore was popular because I got Snooki with my agent who became her, because we had the same entertainment lawyer. And this guy's an idiot, dude. And this is my old college agent. This guy's such a moron. I go, yo, man, my entertainment lawyer asked me for the favor. And I said, hey, can I go, I'll ask, oh, no, fucking my agent asked me because he's a family friend. And he goes, hey, can you hook me up with your entertainment lawyer? And he's like, I gotta rep Snooki from Jersey Shore because she's like a family friend. He was all down about it. And I was like, this guy's a fucking college agent who lives in buttfuck nowhere, doesn't live in New York or LA, you know what I mean? And I go, dude, that's great. And he's like, huh? And I go, you're gonna make a ton of money. And he was like, oh, really? Dude, he told me the second they put her on the website, and like she obviously directed people like, oh, if you want to book me for a club appearance, not to strip, but like to drink at a club for an hour.
Yeah.
Dude, it was like 25, 50, 75 grand.
Yeah, dude.
So what, like the president paid you for sex? Like we can get to go watch you strip? Like I'm imagining the guys that are into that. That's got to be a fucking huge moneymaker.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure, but the thing is, it's like she's also saddled with some expenses. She lost the defamation suit against the president and has to pay, I think, $250,000 in legal fees.
Okay.
So, it's a double-edged sword for her. Yeah, her rates went up. That's great, but she's also in the hole for a bunch of other stuff,
Right.
So yeah, she definitely is like, it's interesting. It's interesting. In the beginning of all this stuff, I had reached it. There was like the one day I'd reached out to Stormy was like, it was like a day where like Rudy Giuliani was like said some nasty things about her, and it was like on TV, and I was like, dude, like, I mean, he was basically talking about her like she was subhuman, and I reached out and I was like, dude, I'm like, keep your head up, man. I'm like, well, this is just nuts, but don't even pay attention to this shit, because I can't imagine, what sort of experience that is where you have, and she's handling it well. If you ever see her on Twitter, dude, she fires back with trolls all the time, and it's like entertaining. She can handle herself.
Yeah.
Stormy's like quick on her feet. She's super funny, and she can handle herself. But I can't imagine that sort of the world of trolls that come down on you on the MAGA side. It's got to be rough.
I mean, it's such a interesting story. I think that's one of the things about Trump, though, like when the story broke, like even people who voted for Trump, I don't think were like, no way. You know what I mean? Like everybody's like, oh yeah, probably. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't even like care to like no offense to your friend Stormy, but like it's not even really interesting to me because I'm like, yeah, it sounds like what Donald Trump would do. Like,
right, exactly.
I mean? So
exactly.
That's why I think, dude, it's just mostly people that, I mean, dude, when I went to, did I tell you, my buddy Ian and I, before he moved to Texas, we thought it'd be fun to go to Politicon.
Oh yeah, how was that?
I like following politics. Like I like paying attention to what's going on, and I me, like I kind of just see both sides as being like a little too crazy and too divisive. That week we thought it would be fun. We immediately were just like, we are so not any of these people. Like there are people on the right. Like there's this old guy dressed up in like red stuff, like "Make America Great Again" hat, and like all this stuff. And it's like, even if you vote, like, there's my thing. I don't think you're bad if you voted for Trump. I don't think you're bad if you vote for Clinton. Like, because I think most people were just like, I don't want the other person. I really do think that's what a lot of people felt like. But if you're like so fucking down for a politician, that is so weird to me. And the people on the left just look like lunatics to me, dude, with like their pussy hats. And then the people on the right with all their MAGA shit. I'm like, this is like your choice? Like, I don't understand how you live your life like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. It's insane. You see that, they just had the CPAC. I don't know if it's still going, but they have like Silk and what's her name? The other chick?
Diamond and Silk, yeah.
Diamond and Silk are like headlining days. You know what I mean? And it's like, what have we...
It's so weird.
Bro, the idiocracy, like, predictions that were made in that movie are pretty much materializing now.
I think they started materializing a little bit before now, and I think it's more exaggerated now. Dude, do you remember, did you ever see me do that joke? I did it for a while about, like, I'd like never watch really cable news anymore because I think it's all just so, like, if you go into a conversation where it's like, it's almost like watching a debate class where it's like, all right, Pete, you are on the left. Jeff, you are going to be on the right today, and you don't get to ever concede a point. Like, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. But there was a guy I did a joke for a while where I was watching, and I forgot what he said, and he goes, yeah. And he goes, if you don't believe me, it's all in my book. And I'm like, what kind of weird logic is that? Like, if you don't believe me, it's all in the book I wrote, so trust me again. It's like, dude, you wrote your book. What? Like that was.
If you don't like the auditory form, there's a written form as well by the same person.
It was just
if you want to fact check me.
It's just weird, dude. You turn on, I feel like pretty much every channel is anti-Trump except for Fox, and then Fox is like finding, and it's really only the talk. There are shows on Fox where it's like the guys that like Brett Baer just goes like, oh, this is like what's happening today, you know? And I think Chris Wallace does a pretty good job. Even like Jon Stewart, who's like obviously on the left, like told him a long time ago, like he's the exception. But I mean, if it's like Hannity or fucking Laura Ingraham or whatever, and the same to me as CNN is like just as bad. I think the reason why people hate CNN so much is because they pretend they're not on a side, and it's very obvious they are. So it's like, just be on your side. Like, MSNBC is not as hated as CNN, because MSNBC is like, yeah, we're on the left. But it's just weird, dude. Like, no matter what the president does, you know it's going to be, you know, oh, it was fine on one channel, and the other channel's going to be like, it was the worst thing ever. No matter what. Yep. Even if it's not that bad, even if it's horrible, even if it's maybe good, this one, you know, like, it's just weird.
It's pretty crazy, man. And, you know, I find myself... You know, because I like I said, like I like watching politics and paying attention to politics, but I found myself where I put myself like I'll do like a moratorium for like a month on television. I'll be like, I can't watch this. I can't watch anything. I can't read anything. But it's also because I get angry, or like I'll get not angry, but like I just get it's hard to describe. Like, I let it invade my soul too much. I'm like, I know too much. And I realize, and I'm not promoting the idea of sticking your head in the sand, but it's a pretty good way to do it every now and again. To just not pay attention and get out.
Oh, dude, there was the fact that there's like a 24-hour news cycle and there's all these websites and everybody just wants clicks. So sometimes they'll have a headline just so you click on it, and then you read the article and it's like 5 paragraphs in, you're like, well, that totally debunks the headline to this article. You know what I mean? Like, so there's all that stuff. But I think it was Norm Macdonald. Just talking to my friend, I think it was Norm Macdonald who had a joke about the 24-hour news cycle where he's like, yeah, because it's weird, you know, it used to be like the news was like a half hour every night, you know? And there was still time at the end to do a story about like some local dog who can like jump through a hoop or something. You know?
Yeah, it's so true.
And he's like, and now it's like, fucking, really? Is there just this much more news that's important now? So it's like everything needs to be. All these channels are like, boom, alert. Okay, we finished that story. Boom, new graphic. Yeah, new breaking news.
Remember when breaking news was like when there was breaking news?
Yeah, like the 9/11. And
now it's just like there's just breaking news all the time. The red banner at the bottom of cable news used to be like, that used to mean like, oh, something's happening right now. Now it's just always on.
Yeah.
Breaking news. The stuff that we told you about yesterday is still stuff.
Yeah, same
still
thing.
Happening.
Let's have somebody on to talk about it who's completely biased. All right, man. Well, dude, I didn't mean to take up 90 minutes of your time, but I'm glad I did. I didn't know anything about you starting stand-up.
I hope I wasn't just yapping, man. I just, you know, I miss you, and it's funny. Owen Benjamin, who we used to be friends with or used to be more familiar with, he said to me once, he said, you know, podcasts are really like, it's like the time where, you know, comedians really get to catch up as friends. It's like, doing each other's podcasts is like the new hanging out with your friends, you know, and you know, it's been a while, and I'm just happy to talk to you, man. It was nice just to chat with you, dude.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we are, you know, you said you yap the whole time. We're at 91 minutes. I'm definitely cutting this down to about 43, but you get the best stuff out of it. No, I'm just kidding.
Come on, dude. We packed it in there, dude.
I know. No, that was a lot of interesting stuff, man. I didn't even know how you got started in stand-up. I was always wondering that, because I met you at that show where you told me a certain someone who, you know, you don't want to talk about, because you just met me that night and looked at you and goes, oh, when I'm on stage, that's a great joke. I'm taking that. And you told me that. Yeah. You told me that like how many years later? And you're like, dude, I was just friends with that guy, and I just met you, so I told him don't do that, but I didn't tell you because I didn't know we'd become friends.
Yeah, dude. Remember? Didn't I tell you that with Whitney too? Like Whitney. Because Whitney was in earshot of that whole thing, you know. And
you texted her. You're at my house, and you told me that, and she wasn't able to come.
Yeah, dude. She was like so pissed at the time because she was such a fan of you the moment she saw you. I think at Pink Taco was the first time Whitney had ever seen you, and she just thought your set was just awesome and was like, "That's fucking comedy." Like,
is that the first time? When I did Pink Taco? Is that the first time I did it when I would just came up in like short shorts?
Yeah.
That's back when I had a little bit of fucking juice, you know what I mean? Now I gotta go up in my fucking half silk blend shirts like a dad.
Oh, dude. Hey, so when are you gonna be in Hollywood next?
Dude, I don't know. I just saw a certain booker who's like, "Hey, man, yeah, I gotta get you up here more, man." A guy who used to run Pink Taco with. And I'm like, oh god. But anyways, dude, what the name of your podcast to do with Brett? Brett Ernst, a very funny comedian, friend of ours.
Oh yeah, I do. We have a podcast called You're on the List. It's with Brett Ernst. You guys can check that out. It's like we just do a top 10 list of random things. This week we did the top 10 Stephen Brodyisms.
Dude, that was this is my thing. Like, some people reach out to me just because they know I'm a comedian, and I don't pretend that I was like super close with Brody, but I did know Brody pretty well, and like we always talk. And I was just fucking, dude, I broke down like 3 different times.
Yeah, man, you know,
he was such a nice guy. Like, I don't care. All the people saying like, "Oh, his comedy was so different." It's like, that's cool. He was a really, really nice guy.
Yeah, you know, it's very few people, I think, that could die like this and get such a reaction out of people.
And I'm telling you, it's not because of his comedy.
Within the comic community, because he was such a great soul. He was such a sensitive, awesome person, very supportive. Yeah. You know, like if he was just unbelievable, man. He was just just really great. It's a big loss, you know, it's a big loss. And he was just great. Brody was awesome.
And that's the thing, dude. That's my point, is like, Brody was really funny, and he was different, obviously, like on stage and all that. But he wasn't just nice and like supportive. There are guys like the guy I just mentioned, who I didn't say his name. We all know that guy's like super fucking fake. He's like one of the fakest humans you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
And then there's guys like Brody who would, like, you know, I don't even remember the first time I met Brody, which is something I heard a lot of people say. But it's just like, I just knew him and he knew me, and he'd always talk and be like, "Hey Jeff, like, how's it going? You know, like, blah, blah, blah. How's the crowd? Oh yeah." Like, you know, and he was always he's like, "Oh man, you're great," or "You had a great set." Like, and it wasn't like a lot of people in LA, like, people don't realize, are just, they think that you might be able to help them. And like, I never got that vibe from him at all. Yeah.
It's like, he's something. He would always come, like, when he would see you, he would always just greet you with like your latest credit. You know what I mean? Like, be like, "Jeff Keith, funny you should ask. Hello, on television. Good guy." You know?
Yeah.
He's just like, whatever it is, man. He was a really uplifting soul. You know, and it's just such a shame. It's just such a shame. You know, I saw him last week, and I talked to him a couple days before he passed away, and at the Comedy Store, and he just seemed totally fine, you know. So you never know, and you know, depression's real, and you know, you just gotta. The medication that he was getting back on was intense for him, and man, it's just crazy, dude. It's really nuts that he's gone. You know, the last week has been a very surreal week. I feel like everyone's still in shock that he's like, we're never going to see Brody again, you know?
It is a weird thing. It's just like, yeah, I know. That guy, I mean, I found out because, I mean, I knew he was like battling, I think we all kind of knew he was like battling depression, right? That was a known thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, just, I don't know, man, just to get to that point, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to make light of like suicide at all, but I remember I was super down once, and just to show you how to actually get to that point, to do that, how fucking horrific that is. I remember years ago when I lived in Burbank, and my ex-girlfriend and I would always break up, and I remember I was just fucking walking around my neighborhood in Burbank, nice area in Burbank, and I was just feeling fucking so down. I'm all down on myself. And I think I was probably crying. Let's just put it out there. I'm crying, right? Not the toughest guy. And I remember thinking, like, I just want to die right now. I just want to die. And then I just started laughing because I realized almost right away, like, you're full of shit, Jeff. Like, if you really wanted to die, you wouldn't be walking around a nice area in West Burbank. You'd probably fucking go to a bad area and start some shit with a gang. You know what I mean? Like, you're just being a little fucking baby right now. So it's like, to really get to that point, dude, that just fucking kills me, man. Like, because he was so like, you know, it's such a beloved guy. You know what I mean? As far as people, like, I don't care about comedy, dude. Like, if someone is nice, like, I always tell people, and they're like, you know, they say something about like, someone in my wife's family said to me once, I don't know why they think, well, maybe because I used to be on TV, but they're like, he was like, yeah, man, he goes, it's so cool, like you're so like down to earth and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, dude, I go, I'm way more concerned with being a good person than being like the best comedian. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
it's just
exactly.
There's no, because we do. You met a ton of celebrities. Like, fucking, who cares if you meet a celebrity and they're a piece of shit? You're not like, oh my god, I still wish I was that person. Like, you don't want to be that person. There's a bunch of miserable celebrities, so. I don't know. All right. Well, we always like to end on a high here.
Yeah. I didn't mean to bring it down, but
no.
Brody Stevens. If anyone's listening to this, that doesn't know Brody, there's a lot of good clips of him up online, and Comedy Central just put his half hour out for free on YouTube, and just check it out. It's good for the soul. He was a very, very positive person. Always, he always pushed positivity, and he tried, man. He totally tried. He did not want to die. He was always in the pursuit of trying to feel better. He did not want to die. It's not like he was like, it wasn't on the top of his to-do list. He definitely was trying everything he possibly could to manage the fight that he was having with his own, brain.
Man, there was I just got off Twitter, like stopped looking at it because everybody was tweeting obviously about it. But I did see a couple tweets about like just people posting stories about, they have with Brody. I think it was John Roy. I don't know if you saw his tweet where he said, and both these things are just sound like you could just picture Brody doing it if you know him, And John's story was about how years ago they were at the Laugh Factory, and there was like it was like an industry showcase, and the whole room was industry, and John said all these comics going up before were like names you would know, so they were like big names basically, and everyone was just eating shit, and they were coming upstairs, where the green room or wwhatever it is, where the comics hang out, and they're like, oh no, that crowd's just the worst of the worst, and industry crowds are like notoriously bad. And he tweeted this whole thing out, and he goes, and to explain to anyone listening who's not a comic or in the industry, hip pocketing is something like agents do or managers do when they don't really want to represent you, but they kind of want to see if maybe you blow up, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, you're mine, so they kind of attach themselves to you. So he said all these basically pretty famous comics are up there eating shit. Brody gets up, looks at like the most smug agent in the room and goes, I hip pocket you.
Yeah.
You can just picture Brody doing that. And then
man.
Augie Smith tweeted out a funny story where he said they did a gig in, I think, Arizona, and he said that the next morning Augie was a little hungover or something like that. Maybe I added in that he's hungover, but he said he was grumpy, and they went to McDonald's, and Augie said he had a little bit of an attitude with the girl who served him, and they got in the car, and I guess Brody said something like, you didn't treat her right, you need to go apologize. So then he made Augie go in and apologize, and then Brody, in like the whole McDonald's, like really loud, he used to like walk into the crowd and like without the mic and like clap and get everyone's attention. I guess Brody was just like, all right. He's like, Augie needs to apologize to Katie or something, and then like Augie apologizes and he goes, okay. He's like, Katie, do you accept his apology? And she's like, I do. And he's like, or no, he said something like, Katie, do you accept his apology? It seems sincere, but we never really know what's in someone's heart. So fucking that guy was just fucking great.
Oh, dude, that's amazing.
Anyway, Pete. So Pete, you're on social media and stuff? I mean, I don't know how many people.
Oh yeah,
listen
I'll
to
do
this.
that real fast. The podcast is You're on the List. Check it out, and all my social media, the Twitter is at Pete Giovine, PeteGiovine. That's on Instagram and Twitter. And if you forget that, you don't want to spell my last name, just go to my website, heronteeth.com, and you can follow me on all my stuff there.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the show notes. All right, buddy. You're one of the best. Thank you for doing
Buddy,
this.
I love you, Jeff Keith, and keep it up. Dude, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Keep it up, and shout out to everyone that listens to Jeff Keith. Understand that you are lucky to have this man in your ears. This guy is the man. Jeff Keith, one of the best comedians out there, one of the nicest people, and I wish you all future success, and for you and your family, your growing family. Keep it up, kid.
All right, thanks, buddy.
All right, dude, I love you, pal. Talk to you soon.
I love you too.
Later.
Thank you for listening to my daddy.